Buying a home can be extremely stressful, especially when you are moving to an area that is completely new to you. Today, I'm going to cover 10 types of homes you should not buy if you're moving to the Omaha metro area. First on our list are homes that are on or back to a busy street. I see this mistake when a young couple will buy a home when they don't have kids yet. Maybe the busy street doesn't bother you now, but it will when you have kids. The other consideration is going to be the noise level. Maybe the noise doesn't bother you, or maybe you don't plan on having kids. However, what you have to look at is and consider are 7 to 10 years later when you go to sell. You have to consider the growth of the city. I've seen this many times in 20 years of selling real estate. Today, the road behind you might be a 2-lane road that has some decent traffic, but 10 years from now, that 2-lane road will be expanded to a 4-lane road with heavy traffic. Anytime a road backs to a negative influence like a busy street, there's going to be a hit when it comes to value. Next on our list are going to be flipped properties. Now, another home you should avoid are flipped homes. Now, not all flipped homes are bad. However, you want to use extra caution when you're buying a flipped home in the Omaha market. Now, how can you tell a good flip from a bad flip? Well, the first thing to look at is, did the flipper pull permits? Flippers like to take shortcuts in order to save time and money. Now, one of the ways they can do that is by not pulling permits. One of the sites that you can explore is a site called omahapermits.com, and you can look to see if a permit has been pulled on that particular property. Now, who cares if they didn't pull permits? Maybe you don't care, but what if the flipper used unlicensed contractors, they didn't pull permits, and then later on down the road, something happens? Let's say some electrical work was done, a permit was not pulled, and then there was a fire. Well, your insurance company is going to do an investigation, and they're going to see if permits were pulled or not, and that may influence on whether or not they cover the damage. Pulling a permit provides a little bit extra protection to ensure that the work was at least inspected after the work was completed. The other thing you can do is to ask the seller to provide you with a list of the contractors who performed the work. If the seller's not willing to provide this list, then that's a little bit of a red flag. Then look at the work that was done. Look at the items that are not as sexy. There might be new quartz countertops installed in the kitchen, but is the furnace the same furnace that's 20 years old and is rusty? Is there new carpet and paint, but are the windows 35 years old? What about the roof? How old is the roof? How do you tell if a property is a flip? One of the tells is by looking at the seller property condition disclosure statement. How long has the seller owned the property? Has the seller lived in the property? If the seller has not owned it for at least a year or more and has never lived in the property, then that's a good sign that it was a flip. You can also have your agent check the address history in the MLS, and you can also check the local county assessor's website to see when the last time the property changed hands. Another type of home to avoid is a home that has major structural issues. Look for bowing basement walls, look for cracks in the foundation. Horizontal cracks in the foundation could be a sign of hydrostatic pressure. Use all of your senses. Does the basement smell musty? A musty smell could be a sign of water intrusion. Concrete is going to crack. Now, there's 2 types of concrete. Concrete that is cracked and concrete that is going to crack. What you're looking for is movement. Is there any movement between the slabs of concrete? Remember, when you buy a home in the Omaha market, if you opt to conduct home inspections, you have a window of time to conduct any and all inspections. And this can include a foundation inspection by a structural engineer or by a basement waterproofing company. Let's take a moment and talk about inspections. Now, many buyers are aware that they can do a home inspection. However, buyers can also do other inspections as well. For example, a sewer scope inspection or a radon test. Now, eastern Nebraska is known for high levels of radon gas. Radon gas is a colorless, odorless, radioactive gas that is the second leading cause of lung cancer in the United States. And eastern Nebraska is known for having some of the highest radon levels in the country. Testing for radon can cost a buyer around $150 to $200. The test takes several days, and if high levels of radon are found, you can ask the seller to install a radon mitigation system. A radon mitigation system can cost around $1,500 to $2,000 depending on the home, and it will bring the radon down to an acceptable level. Since we're on the topic of inspections, another inspection you should do is a sewer scope inspection. A sewer scope inspection costs around $250, and it's probably the best $250 you'll ever spend when you're buying a home. How it works is a plumber is going to run a camera down the main sewer line to inspect the line. As a homeowner, you're responsible from your home to where the sewer line connects in the middle of the street. If you're buying a home in an older neighborhood with mature trees, and if the main sewer stack is made of cast iron, and the drain-out plug has been replaced with a rubber plug, you should definitely do a sewer scope inspection. Replacing a main sewer line can cost you anywhere around $20,000. And I've never had a buyer say to me, "Boy, I'm really sorry I did that sewer scope inspection." If you're doing your inspections, be strategic. Do the sewer scope inspection first. That way, if the deal goes sideways and you're going to bail, you've only spent $250. If the sewer scope passes, then you can do your whole house inspection. If you do it the other way, you spend $600 on a whole house inspection, then you spend $250 on the sewer scope inspection. That means you spent $850 and then you're bailing. My suggestion is to do the sewer scope inspection first, schedule the whole house inspection, and then if the sewer scope turns out bad, then you can cancel the whole house inspection. If the furnace, roof, or HVAC system is older, nothing says that you cannot have that system inspected by a licensed professional. Maybe you have an older furnace that's working at the moment, but at least having it looked at by a professional will give you some idea of the replacement costs down the road, so you can factor that into your budget. The next home on the list to avoid are homes that require flood insurance. Omaha has several areas that require flood insurance. Home requires flood insurance. I would avoid it like the plague. The cost of flood insurance is steep. And if you're new to the Omaha area, you would be surprised at how high some of the local creeks and streams get after a thunderstorm. In fact, many of the local lakes around the metro area were all a result of taming the Papio Creek watershed. As the city expands westward, you see more and more lakes being built in order to help control flooding. If you decide to purchase a home, after your home goes under contract, one of the first calls you should make is to your insurance provider. Floodplains in our area can change. The other thing to do is to ask about the type of coverage and the cost of the premium. Insurance in Nebraska is very high because of our weather patterns. Speaking of moving to the Omaha area, if you're relocating to Omaha and you need assistance, my name is David Matney and I'm a local realtor here in Omaha. My contact information is in the description below. While we're on the subject of insurance, I want to take a moment and talk about insurance coverage. What you're looking for is the best policy at the best rate. Many buyers, when they buy a home, they're excited about buying and they don't really pay attention to the type of homeowners insurance coverage. For example, you might have an older roof and you might not get replacement coverage. Keep in mind, I'm not an insurance professional. You want to make sure to discuss your type of coverage with your trusted insurance professional. Now, insurance coverage can be either ACV, which stands for actual cash value, or replacement coverage. What's the difference? ACV coverage works like this. Let's say you have an older roof. After a hailstorm, you have a roofer evaluate the roof, and the roof needs to be replaced. And let's say it's going to cost you $20,000. The insurance company will say, hey, because the roof is older, we're only going to give you $8,000. Because you have ACV coverage, you have to come up with the difference, or $12,000 on your own. Replacement coverage works like this. Let's say the roof is newer. after a hailstorm, the roofer comes out, evaluates the roof, and the roof needs to be replaced. And let's say it's going to cost you again $20,000. Now you pay your deductible of $1,000 and your insurance company covers the rest of the cost to replace, or $19,000. Here's another very important point. If you live in Omaha and you suspect that you have hail damage, do not call your insurance company. Your first call should be to a local, trusted, reputable roofer. Have the roofer evaluate the roof first. Find out if you have damage, then call your insurance provider. Sometimes your roofer will even meet the adjuster to make sure all of the damage is noted. The next home on the list is conversion duplexes. Now, conversion duplexes hold a special place in my heart. I've owned one and it was a giant mistake. Now, the nice thing about YouTube is it gives you the opportunity to learn from other people's mistakes, which costs a lot less. Now, I know all the internet and there's all sorts of videos out there about house hacking, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with buying a multi-family property. However, here's what I mean by a conversion duplex. And you'll see this in an older neighborhood. A conversion duplex is where a homeowner converts a large 2-story home into 2 separate apartments. Buying a conversion duplex is a bad idea on multiple levels. Chances are it's going to be an older home, so it has an older foundation, older electrical system, older plumbing. All those sorts of systems are older. It is a conversion, so the home is going to be divided in a wonky way. I purchased one personally, and it was the single worst investment I have ever made. And it was a very expensive way to learn a lesson to not buy a conversion duplex. Now, the other question is, was the conversion done professionally? Were permits pulled? The home was designed as a single family home. Keep it that way. Now, usually what happens, and I fell for this too, and that is where people get tempted by the numbers. And I fell into this trap. 2 units, I can make more money. Now, there's not a lot of renters out there who are clamoring to rent a conversion duplex. So you tend to get people in transition, so they just don't stay as long. And when it's vacant, it tends to be vacant longer because people are not attracted to living in a home that has been chopped into 2 individual units. So long story short, I would avoid buying a conversion duplex. The next home on our list is the homes that are located in the lead Superfund area. Now, if you're new to Omaha, you might see the new downtown area, the riverfront, Cary Bridge, and the new STEM museum, the Luminarium, and you might not be aware of the history. The Asarco plant in Omaha was in operation since the 1880s, and it closed in the 1990s. The operation of the plant was for nearly 125 years, and it resulted in the contamination of the soil in and around that area, and it was known as the lead Superfund area, which is a large chunk of North Omaha. This site is the largest lead Superfund site in the country, and since 1998, the EPA has worked to clean up the site. This includes 13,000 residential properties in this zone. Asarco eventually settled a $200 million lawsuit in 2009. If you buy a home in the Superfund area, you'll need to sign a disclosure about the zone. If you want to learn more, you can visit the Omaha Lead Registry at omahalead.org. This website can be used to see what tests have been done on a property in that area. I've owned in that area. In fact, I owned a conversion duplex in the Superfund area that was over 100 years old. And part of that cleanup, they would test the soil, and if high levels of lead were found, they would replace that soil. Now, knowing what I know now, I would avoid dealing with the lead zone. As someone who grew up in Omaha, I remember the Asarco plant, and when you drove by that plant, it stunk to high heaven. It is unfortunate because there's some really neat historical neighborhoods in the lead Superfund area. Again, it's something you should be aware of, and you should verify what work has been done in terms of lead mitigation, especially if you buy a home in the lead Superfund area. If you're an investor and you purchase investment properties in the lead superfund area or any home built before 1978, you want to make sure you make all of the proper disclosures in regards to lead-based paint and the lead superfund area. Not making these disclosures can result in some pretty hefty fines by the EPA. Anytime a government agency has 3 letters in its name, it's just not best to mess with them. I'm a big fan of having a property management company assist you when you invest in real estate because many investors are unaware of all the rules and regulations when it comes to investing in real estate. I've said this before and I'll say it again. If you're an investor, it's not if you will be sued, it is when you will be sued. Speaking of homes that are over 100 years old, another home you need to avoid or you should avoid are homes that are over 100 years old. Now, I love old historic homes. However, when you buy a home that's over 100 years old, these homes can have lead-based paint, outdated wiring, poor floor plans, smaller closets, clay sewer lines. There's a whole host of problems that come along with homes that are over 100 years old. If you're buying an older home, you need to budget for more maintenance, and you really need to do your due diligence. If it has been updated, when was the updating done? And if you're buying a home, it's just best to avoid a home that's over 100 years old. Keep in mind, an older home will be less energy efficient, which means you'll have to budget for higher utility bills as well. Older homes could mean narrower driveways and detached garages. This means you'll have to go outside the home during inclement weather when you go to work. Number 8 on our list are homes that back to train tracks, large power lines, or any other negative influence. You got to be careful not to buy a home that backs to train tracks or large power lines. Again, it may not bother you when you purchase, but when you go to sell, you're going to pay a price for it. Same thing goes with large power lines. I'm talking about the large power lines that when you stand underneath them, you hear the humming sound. If your home backs to a commercial space or something like an apartment building, any home that backs to a negative influence will have a ding on the value of the property. Sometimes as a buyer, you have to be careful because sellers are pretty smart about this. When they go to sell a home that backs to a negative influence, they'll sell it when all of the leaves are on the trees, so you are not aware of the negative influence. So if you're a buyer, you got to visualize what it will look like if there's no leaves on those trees. Number 9 on our list are homes on sloping lots. One of the homes you want to avoid are homes on a steep slope, especially when the slope is towards the house. Nebraska gets lots of rain in the spring and summer months. Grading around the house is very important. You want the grading around the home to slope away from the foundation. Now, in some neighborhoods, you'll find a backyard sloping towards the back of the home. This is pushing all of that water towards the foundation. In newer homes, homes have a drain tile system, which will help divert the water away from the foundation. In older homes, there's no drain tile system. And without a drain tile system, all of that water, when it's not going towards the house, and is causing pressure on the foundation. The best way to prevent water in a basement is by keeping the gutters clean, downspouts which divert the water away from the foundation, and proper grading around the home. Now, if your home is on a slope, you want to make sure that there is what they call a swale in the backyard, which is going to divert the water away from the home. And you'll see a swale between homes where there's a lower level between two properties. Number 10 might not seem like a negative, but think about it. And these are former model homes. Now, when a volume builder is finished with a new development, they will sell their former model homes. Now, on a positive side, some of these homes will have a little bit more bells and whistles. However, for every gimme, there's a gotcha. These homes can be several years old. So you're buying new construction that are actually 2 or 3 years old. Even if the home is several years old, the builder may not give that large of a discount. So that means you're buying a used home at the current price of a new home. Now, one of the benefits of new construction is the builder's warranty. Many times, builders selling a former model home will not provide a warranty with the purchase of a former model home. That is one question you should ask if you decide to purchase a former model home. The other benefit of new construction is with first-year property taxes. When you buy a home that's several years old, that home has been fully assessed by the tax assessor. That means right out of the gate, you're paying fully assessed property taxes. The other negative about a former model home is that they're often located on busy streets, or they back to a busy street. Model homes can also be near the entrance to the subdivision, which means more traffic and more noise, because when the builder built that model home, they wanted it to be easily seen and they wanted to have traffic to the home. Now, a little bit of a bonus here for number 11, and that's going to be condos. Now, I like condos, and not all condos are bad. The reason condos made the list is because many buyers do not pay enough attention to the financials of the condo association. Now, when you buy a condo, you have to inspect not just the condo, but you also have to inspect the financial health of the condo association. If you elect to do inspections, part of your due diligence should be to review the financials of the association by a professional. Now, lately, condos, especially some in Florida, have been hit with special assessments. Now, these are large one-time fees that may be required for certain upgrades or if there's insufficient reserves. In addition to the financials, you want to make sure you carefully review the rules and regulations. There could be rules on pets, there could be rules on having it as a rental property, or there could be rules on how you decorate. Be sure you do your research before you buy a condo.